do the notes and stuff. All right. Hey, it's January 26th, and I want to apologize about yesterday. Yesterday we had a power outage that kind of messed up our schedule. So what we're going to do is we're going to lecture today and tomorrow over the age of exploration. And on Thursday, we're going to review. So there's going to be no lecture on Thursday. And on Friday, there's also not going to be a lecture because you're going to have a test. And it's going to be over all the material we went over in January, especially the Renaissance. So study that stuff. And of course, Quizlet has plenty of material for you to check on. You have your book, you have the notes we post, you have the lectures we post. So do it, study. All right, so we have the following terms up on the board. We have old concepts of geography, Prester John, Marco Polo, navigation, and why explore in the first place. And this isn't just a European thing. As we're going to see in our videos later, a lot of people explore. Like, why are the Pacific Islands full of a lot of people who are genetically similar to one another and culturally similar? It's because those people want to explore. Why did Native Americans who originated from north of China make it all the way down to the southern tip of South America? It's because they want to explore. But also because, other migration things, like they needed land and food and safety. So the images we have, this is a Chinese compass, which is made of what we call lodestone. A lodestone is naturally occurring magnetized iron that can be, for reasons I don't know why, is already magnetized. And of course, as you know, can point to the north in a compass. It's one cool thing about Earth is the Earth, we have a magnetic field that pulls to the north and the south. Unlike places like Mars, that actually has dozens of magnetic fields. So a compass would be pretty worthless there because if you're in this part, it'll point that way, that part, it'll point that way. It's just kind of weird. But as you see, much like a compass we have today, it has to be balanced so that magnetic forces can move it around. So that's why it's kind of like balanced on a spoon like this in here. I don't understand the concept of this, but I'm assuming this way is north. So. Here is a more Europeanized form of compass. Of course, you see it has the cardinal directions, and which is north, south, east, and west. And then you have secondary directions, which are northeast, southwest, all that. Of course, there is a needle in here, which is on a dial, where it can easily spin around. It's very important. You want to know what direction you're going in. And using an ancient Greek device called the astrolabe, they were able to tell their latitude. And of course, lines of latitude, if you're looking at a map, are the lines that go left and right. They help you measure how far you are north and south. They had some crude forms of determining longitude, the lines that go up and down, to tell how far you're going left and right, or east and west. But they're not going to have accurate ways to measure that until we get really, really, really good, accurate clocks hundreds of years later. Because you have to actually time, travel and the travel of the sun very, very accurately to determine those lines very well. Boat making is going to improve. And so, as we had talked about, seafaring empires such as why am I drawing a blank? Not Naples. Venice, had like galleys. And they were very famous for the galleys made in a district that they called the Arsenal. And these galleys had sails, but they were very simple sails. And they were kind of one directional for capturing the wind. And they had to rely on rowers in order to go forward, back, and all that stuff. It was pretty effective. But the thing is, it's based on ancient designs all the way back from like the times of the Romans and the Greeks. Europeans, however, are going to learn from the Arabs, which is one of the cool things Europeans get from the Crusades. They learn a lot of things from the Muslims. They're going to learn how to make sails that are better at catching wind from different angles. so they can actually harness more wind power and they can use it in different directions instead of just one. And so they start getting triangular sails. As you can see, like this is a simple, it's not a caravel is what this is called. And they can move much faster than a galley. They have more storage space. You don't need anybody to row the thing. And as we get bigger and bigger boats, like all the way up to galleons, you're going to have more sails that can capture even more wind from even more angles. It's going to be super efficient that way. So, Prester John. So there's a medieval myth about an ancient Christianized group of Jewish people who lived in Africa somewhere south of Egypt in a land called Ethiopia. And they believed that this Christian kingdom was besieged by the Ottomans, and that they were appealing to Europe for help, so that they could have like a new crusade, and that with their combined forces they could get rid of the Ottoman Empire and have the Holy Land back and everything. The thing is, there was a letter that circulated from one king's court to another, supposedly written by Prester John, this mythical king. Well, it turns out it was a fraud. It was made up by some monk who thought it'd be a good idea to have another crusade. But this inspired a lot of people for like, hey, look, there's a real this is bigger than us. We can actually go throughout the world, get spam calls, and because by this time the Crusades had been a few generations removed, but just because the Crusades had been a massive failure, at least the later ones, there was still this hope for redemption. And during this time, Europeans realized more and more that the Ottomans were a lot tougher than they were. They had a much more powerful navy. Their military was making massive gains in Eastern Europe and pushing closer and closer to Western European lands. And so they were very, very fearful that pretty soon that they would be conquered by the Ottomans. And so a lot of people wanted hope. Of course, some of the other reasons, let's read them all, that they wanted to explore, of course, this sense of adventure. You remember we learned like in kindergarten, like gold, God, and glory. People wanted wealth. During the Crusades, so many people have been exposed to find things like silk and spices, sugar, even some things like coffee and stuff like that. They were like, wow, life sure is better for a lot of people in the world, but these things are super expensive. And of course, they blamed the Ottomans for upping the charges on all these things because they're traditionally enemies. And so they thought that maybe if they could go to these mythical places that were talked about by Marco Polo, they could get there. After the Bible, as far as the written word was concerned, the second biggest genre of books besides religious books that people wanted to buy up were travel logs. They're essentially like merchants who would write about strange countries and the things that they've seen and the weird food they ate and just how people look different in other parts of the world. And people wanted a sense of that. Most people never left an area bigger than they could walk from where they were born. So like a day's journey on foot. That's as far as you ever knew. You never went any further than that. And so like, there's just a big sense of people's imaginations and the unknown out there. It's like, what could it be? Could it be a lot of riches? Could it be dangerous? Who knows? And so it brings us to our notes up here. Old concepts of geography. So, medieval concepts of geography were not really based on scientific observation. They were based largely on two sources. What were those two sources? Sailing. Well, think about like what's written down. Map makers. Kind of like it later, like medieval map making wasn't that big of a deal yet. It was based in part between a combination of Greek, specifically Ptolemaic Greek, like that philosopher Ptolemy, Greek geography, what little they had, and scriptures. Like if you've ever like the Jewish people had like a very different concept of the earth than we do today. Like they thought that ancient Hebrews thought that the earth essentially had like a dome over it, and the dome had these little doors on it that God could open up to bring rain down and stuff like that. They believed the earth was relatively flat, and so like their concept of the earth was very, very different. And so some medieval people with no other sources of knowledge took these ancient Hebrew concepts as like what the earth could be like. And like your book said, like the four corners of earth, like they were talking about out of Isaiah. And so like, well, I guess there's four corners to the earth. Now, a lot of them didn't believe that because yes, sailors could tell anybody, if you look out in the ocean, you're going to see that whoop, the world kind of goes down on the corners as you look out on the horizon. And a lot of educated people believed that the world was round as well. So it wasn't like common to believe like flat earth, right? So though some people did. So Prester John. So what did the myth of Prester John have to do with? Yeah. And so it was a myth of a Christian king in Africa. So yeah, a monk forged a letter asking for help. And they promised they had all these riches and stuff like that. In a new crusade. And so, and that of course is going to fulfill a lot of desires to go out to the new world, unexplored regions, wealth, civil glory in a military sense, possible salvation, and participating in a crusade. So all these things are like very appealing to people. But in any case, as we're going to see when we come back tomorrow, the search for Prester John is going to be a very real deal to a little country called Portuguese. And in Portugal, they're going to have some of the first major innovations in sailing, specifically by royalty by a guy named Prince John the Navigator, which we'll get to later. No, Henry the Navigator. All right, so Marco Polo. So we read a little bit about him in the past. So what we're mostly concerned with is how Marco Polo inspired people. So what did he do to like inspire people to know about the world?
Brought riches back where he came. People were like, I want to get rich too.
Yeah. Got rich in his travels. But how did people find out about this?
He wrote a book.
Yes, he wrote a very popular book. A very popular book about his travels to India and China, or as they called it, Cathay. And so a lot of it was exaggeration. Some historians debate whether or not he made it to some of the regions he claimed he did. But in any case, when he's like popularizing, just look how like filthy rich people are over there. And their lives are so good in so many ways. Well, at least the rich people. We could get in on this wealth. And guess what? Some of them are open to learning about our culture and our religion and stuff. So it's like, once again, going back to those old motives. All right, so means of navigation will change. And what really changes in navigation, if you could give it one term, that's really going to help press it on in a way that's not been done before? It was change in. What? I almost heard something there. Sales. Well, sales is part of it. It's something we see a lot of changes in now. Like when we got
Changes in technology.
yes, technology is where I'm for. Yes. So, see, changes in technology, and sales is a good example of it. Changes in technology for direction, distance, maps, and wind power. And so much more stuff. Like they're learning a lot of things. And a lot of it's thanks to the Crusades. Thanks to the Crusades, though there was a lot of fighting, there was also a lot of peaceful trading with people within the region. There was a lot of learning. There's a lot of exchanging. It wasn't just like constant like slaughter, right? Like there was, most of the period was people living around one another. And often like, intermarrying and all those things that people do. And so, they're going to learn a lot from the Arabic people, who in turn learned a lot from the Greeks, and of course from trading all the way through their trade networks to the people of China. So it's sharing of technology. Okay, cool. So what are some reasons for exploration?
To spread religion.
That's right. So they want to teach them about some Jesus. So religion.
To create commerce.
There we go. Trade and commerce. That's another big one, because people are willing to risk a lot for both. I always misspell religion. Every time I try to spell it. All right. Two N's?
You put 2 N's.
No, that's a U. Ugly U. All right. Hey, what else?
Curiosity.
Huh?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll just call it adventure. So religion, trade, adventure.
Money.
Yeah, a little maybe money there. I think that's about it. I think that's about it. So, you have like national prestige, stuff like that. You're starting to see a little bit of a sense of serving your king as becoming more and more something people are more prideful of. Because like back before this period during medieval times, people really adored their king, but they also had to pay so much homage to their local lord. But we're going to see it's going to become more and more like in a national sense that the nation is the king. Hello.
Oh, he's in Miss Johnson's room. No, Hunter. She's doing the survey.
It's me.
Okay. Hey, that's going to do it for today. So we come back tomorrow. We're going to go over the next couple of chapters and learn a little bit more about exploration, especially Portugal and Spain. Talk to you later. Oh, that was short.